Hi everyone, this is Kushal Shushmali and welcome to our YouTube channel. A lot of people have been asking me about the demo of Context Pilot, the code walkthrough. It's not there yet, but I still wanted to give you a brief overview of how things are working. It's going to be probably split into multiple videos so that you guys can follow me along in shorter videos rather than long 1 hour videos. That's why I'm not streaming this right now and I'm recording. So yeah, hope you like the content. Here we go. Let's just give you an overview of the product if you're visiting for the first time. What does Context Pilot do? Context Pilot is a tool for you in any editor of your choice, VS Code or neovim right now. You can pick up a line and you can get the most relevant files to it. That's it. Similarly, you can pick up a line and you can get the most relevant authors as well. So it's not just lines, it can be authors as well. Okay. Now, it's not just line, it's not just relevant files, it's not just relevant authors, it can also be a section of line. It could be a multiple line code, whatever you have. Let's say it is a class. You want to find what are the most relevant files for this existing class. You can do it. You can also do it for the current file as well. So let's say the current file you're visiting, what are the most relevant files to it? Okay, and what does relevance mean here? Relevance is not that, okay, where is it used? Reference is different. That's what LSP gives you. Relevance is, for example, if I'm changing a thing in this current file, what are the other relevant files I might need to make some change? Or maybe the other authors have probably changed the current file or current line number. They have also changed that file that is existing in the same subdirectory maybe or same relevance library. It could be anything else as well, module. Okay, you never know. Okay, so for example, over here I'm here right now. So let's go to this thing over here, right? So we are at request type options, right? And you want to understand, okay, what are the most relevant files to it? So if I do context pilot current line, that's what I want, because for the current line, here you go, it gives me src main.rs, which is the current file itself, and this context gpt underscore structs.rs. Okay, so if I do command B, which just opens in the split mode, you can see it actually shows the request type options are here, and I've implemented the enum, I'm implementing from stir here and all, right? So it has pointed me to the right file where the relevance is there. Now it's possible, of course, our go-to definition will also give us this, the same thing, but there are cases when it will not give you the same thing, right? And it could be when you're importing something, you know that you also have to change cargo.toml file. Okay, so these are always important things. For example, if I do context GPT, I can do the for the whole file, it will give you all the files that are relevant to it. As you can see, dev.md, cargo.toml, these are all top 10 files. Okay, now we're gonna talk about how the code is structured. I'm not gonna talk about context pilot right now, that's for another video. Okay, now the way I'm gonna go through is I'm gonna talk about the main.rs file first, and then we'll move forward and try to talk about different things. Okay, so let's go to main.rs file. Okay, just look at the entry point. What is the entry point here? Of course, it's the main function, right? And don't look at the imports, don't look at anything else. The way it works right now, it's a binary. Okay, now this binary is being called by a neovim plugin. It's for another video how this neovim plugin interacts with this binary. But right now, we take some arguments from the CLI, and we need to process it, right? Because of course, whenever you take system.argv, for example, in Python, there are other ways to get in Golang, C++, wherever you're coming from, right? But this is relevant, okay? But the best way you want to do it is you want to have a defined structure of what kind of arguments are going to be, right? And that's where I have defined the CLI from args here. You can see I'm importing CLI here. So let's just go and look at how the CLIs are imported, right? So as you can see, I've just opened it quickly for you all. You can see I have a struct, pub struct CLI, just the name of it, nothing too fancy about it. But I'm importing struct opt, okay, and then we'll go to this later. But if you just want to see, it's I'm using a module called struct opt, and I'm importing struct opt. Okay, so not relevant. Maybe it's coming from an extra module. Just try to understand what we are doing here. So this struct CLI, it has file as a string, it has a folder path as a string, it has start number. Then we are just saying that, okay, the short, if you kind of understand, if you just have an intuition from another language, you know that, okay, if I do minus s hyphen s, it's going to be start number, hyphen e is going to be end number. As simple as that, right? Not very difficult to understand. Similarly here, I have for T as well. That means request type options. Now this is what request type I mentioned. It's possible to get most relevant files. It's possible to get most relevant authors. Now this request type options makes sure that people are not writing something else other than author and file, right? So that's why I have this enum that, okay, it's going to be request type options, either author or file. Okay, and that's it. You guys understand this so far? Hopefully. If not, please feel free to ask questions. Okay, and that's it. Okay, nothing else is relevant for now. This is fine. Sorry about this. I'm facing some problems including the buffers, but anyways, that's for another day. Now over here, what I'm doing, in case if n line number, whatever you pass, if args dot n number equal to 0, I just say that okay, n line number is equal to this is 0, you keep it 0, otherwise you take the args dot n number. So this is not relevant. I don't know why I was doing it, but honestly this was for the case when I have n number is 0, that means you want to go to the n line number. So that's why I had it before. I can just remove it if anyone wants to do it for me. They can do it, but for now the 0 in our algorithm itself means that you want to fetch to the whole file because you need some way. As a user, I will not know what is the end line number, right? I will always know, okay, I want from the start, maybe 0 is, of course, it's very obvious that start is always going to be 0 if you want for the whole file, but you will not know what's the end line number, right? So that's why I just had it. You can skip it, it's not relevant here. Now over here, what do we have? We are counting the lines, and this is why we are doing it, because we want to understand whether n line number is equal to like, is it valid or not? That's where it is used. I think this one was left around, so we can skip it. So we're getting the valid n line number. If args dot n number equal to 0, this is we are doing it. We count the lines minus 1, not trying to unwrap. That's it. So we get count lines over here, you see, and since it's indices, right, you start with 0 and you end with whatever n minus 1. You are very used to the for loops, right? So that's what we're doing it. I don't again want to go into how count lines is done. It's very simple. We open the file, we do this count lines. If you want to go and see, it's a inbuilt function that I'm using from another module. Okay, so I didn't want to implement it myself. That doesn't make sense to reinvent everything from scratch. Although I reinvented JSON-DB database sharding. Sorry. Anyway, so this is done. We got the count lines. We have the valid n line number. If in case args dot n number equal to 0, you got the n minus 1, and otherwise it's n line number because it's valid already, right? And that's what you do. And then you initialize the DB. Now this is very important part. Whenever you start your binary, right, you always initialize your DB. You take the folder path, because it's possible that the current folder is context pilot, the current folder is PyTorch, the current folder is OpenCV, it could be something else as well. And the DB that you want to store, you want to keep a record of which folder path it is. Again, the reason why I'm doing it is because context pilot can be in 2 folders. Context-pilot can be in 2 folders, okay? It could be in, let's say, an original folder. It could be in the forked repository. So you don't want those 2 databases to combine or merge or intersect and all, right? So you want them to be separate, right? That's why I'm taking the folder path. It could also, you can also call it the workspace path and all from the IDE side or editor side, okay? Everything else is default. We are not changing anything. That's it. Okay, now this is very important. Here we are reading the config file and passing defaults. So config impl again is a simple module we have in our own code base. I can just giving you a quick overview. I mean, was just showing you that, but we'll go through it later. So we have a read config function which just takes the config file name and reads the config. Now the reason, because you see a lot of binaries have their own ways to organize the config, right? And if you go to this config file name, it is context pilot.json file. So you are expected to have config pilot.json file, context pilot.json file. If you don't have it, it's okay. I can quickly show you. Can tag context pilot. Okay. Yeah, there you go, right? So this is the file we have, file count threshold and commit hashes threshold. This is 2, this is 10. So you can change it based on your choice. It will automatically work. And this is how it's happening. It's always reading the JSON file. In case you don't give it to me, it will take the default. So again, don't worry about it. How will it take defaults? This is not handled over here. This is handled over here. So we have impl default for this struct. This is how you do it. You just define the default function and you have for both of them file count threshold and commit hashes threshold. And these are the constants, by the way. So you can see this is where I have output count threshold default is 10, and I think what's the other one? Last many commit hashes is 5. Okay, so these are the defaults we have. Again, just wanted to quickly give you an overview. And reconfig is all I'm doing here. You see that I'm going through. Okay, you got the config file. So this is the very important part, because home dir for each operating system varies, right? For example, Linux, it could be /home /username. For Mac OS operating systems, right, you have /users /username. Similarly, for WSL, it could vary different things, right? So I knew that it's going to be very complicated to implement, and I didn't want to do it. I knew that those third-party libraries that are already doing it will be doing it fine. So I'm using simple home dir, which gets the home dir for me, and I just get home dir path, and I join the config file name along with the home dir path because that's where I'm expecting it right now. Ideally, it should be in .config to just follow the norm, but I'm just for the sake of it, I'm doing it here. That's it. You just match if it exists. Otherwise, you just take the default. This is what I'm seeing, right? Okay, you got the default. That's where I'm getting the defaults. In case the file does not exist, okay, that's the only time when we are taking the defaults. It needs to be fixed. It's possible one thing is existing in the config file, but the other key is not existing. So if you again you want to pick this up, you want to contribute to this project, you can do that. Okay. That's it, right? And this is where the request type comes in. I told you, right? We are only allowing to file and author. So we do request type. We match. It's like an if else condition. You check if it's file or if it's author. If it's file, you initdb args.file.star. Over here, this is again, this could have been just very generic as well. Earlier, this existed because of some testing I was doing, but it's fine, right? So we are just taking the file path because for DB you will always need the file path, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, I'm not going to NetDB because that's going to be in the DB video, but there are two folders. I have get unique file change and we have get contextual authors. This gets you the most relevant files for the current file. It could be a start number, valid end line number. By the way, if you're wondering how will you distinguish between the current file and the current line number, for current line number the start and end are going to be same. So if I'm going to start from 0, I'm going to end to 0. That means that okay, you just meant that okay, what's the current line number? Or sorry, it's 0 to 1. So you can say that okay, I'm going to start from 0, I'm going to end at 1. So it's going to take the just the current line number. That's how it's going to do. Okay. And that's it. You're just printing the output. Don't get confused. Why are we printing the output? Because at the end of the day, the plugins or the extensions, they're going to catch this output to the console, and then they're going to pass it and then they're going to show it to you, right? So this just gets printed. If you run the binary as well, you see that this is getting printed. Okay. And similarly for author, you get the contextual authors and then you try to print it to console. And at the end of the day, these plugins, the neovim plugin, the VS Code extension, they all take this as an output, pass it, and then show it to you depending on how they want to do it. Okay. We are already in 12 minutes in this video, so I'm going to stop here. This is a main.rs file review of how the flow, not end to end, but just the main file looks like. Okay. In my opinion, looking at the main file always helps. It gets you started. Okay. You don't get afraid by things if things have been modularized properly. The project is really, really well organized. The main file should be very short, very comprehensive, user friendly. How does it enter? How does it exist? How does your user enter this command binary? How does it exit this binary? That's what it should do. It should not do very complicated things. I think this is almost there. A few things that we could have changed. Again, you can just remove this if you want. Nothing will change. You just need to use args.end number here, nothing else. So this is totally fine. You can fix these things as you go along. I'm not going to do it for now. I'm going to wait for a day for you guys to watch this video and do it for me. If you want to contribute, it's going to be a good starting point. But this is the main file review. I hope you guys like the video. The next video is of course going to be, let's see what we're going to talk about. But if you have any suggestions, put that in the comments down below what you want to see next. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry for keeping you guys waiting about this video. Keep learning, keep enjoying this content on whatever content you're watching. This is Kushal Shishmali, and thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. If you like the content, please make sure to like the video. Let me know down in the comments below. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm tired of saying these things, but if you like the content and want to support me as well, please subscribe to the channel. If you don't want to subscribe, that's totally fine as well. Thank you. Bye bye.